With modern facilities and Roll call, please.
Chairman Crystal Maynard,
Present.
Philip Hightower,
Here.
Odin Gruby, and Jody McWilliams.
Present.
All right, we'll move on to the first order of business. Is that right? Oh, am I speaking? Can you hear me? Is your mic on? I think so.
No, you got the
Push the
toggle
switch
switch
up.
when it's green.
It's
There
this.
you go.
Sorry if that was that green one. Okay, let's move on to our first order of business, our consent items. We have A, approval of regular meeting minutes from April 21st and approval of 2023 meeting schedule. Do I have a motion?
I move.
I make a motion to consider the items removed from consent. Isn't that right?
No, you want to make a motion to
Approve.
approve consent
Yeah.
items.
Make a motion to approve consent items.
I second.
Will you call for a vote, please?
Chairman Crystal Maynard,
Aye, we're good to go.
Philip Hightower,
Aye.
and Jody McWilliams.
Aye.
Tom? Okay. Tom is here.
All right, can,
Swear him in, let me go up there and get your oath. And get your oath.
we are going to go ahead and swear in Mr. Tom Gardner.
You give me that oath. Okay, we'll come swear in. Okay. So, I'll get you sworn in, so if you can repeat after me. I, Tom Garner,
I, Tom Garner,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma,
the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma.
and that I will not knowingly receive,
I will not knowingly receive,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
any money or other valuable thing
any money or other valuable things
for the performance or non-performance
for the performance or non-performance
of any act or duty
of any act or duty
pertaining to my office
pertaining to my office,
other than the compensation allowed by law.
other than the compensation allowed by law.
I further swear
Further swear,
I will faithfully discharge my duties
I will faithfully discharge my duties
as a member of the Cemetery Advisory Board
as a member of the Cemetery Advisory Board
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities.
Okay, and if you'll sign right here, and then you got a choice of sitting next to Philip or next
I
to,
would- The closest one will be fine, I will handle it.
okay,
Come on up the stairs, you'll be closest to me probably.
okay.
Come on over.
And, if you'll sit, I'll just walk around, they'll take you around to sit next to Philip.
Welcome aboard.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
My apologies for tardiness.
Nothing but grace here. All right, so Miss Cindy, do you want to go ahead and give your cemetery administrator's report?
Sure. Okay,
Just real quick, we need to consider the approval of the 2023 meeting schedule.
that one, those two went
You
together.
went together on that? Okay.
Under the consent items, it kind of goes as a package deal unless someone pulls one for further discussion.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ask y'all if you want to discuss that before I make a motion.
No. We're good.
Okay. Since we last gathered, I can't say that, which is a good thing. We haven't had any outstanding things that come to mind of a negative nature that have been going on out there. It's been running smoothly between the grave service and our mowing service. They both have contracted with us for several years now. They're both about 5 years that they've been working for us, and so we're coming near the end of the mowing season, the end of October, and so now they'll be doing the second fire ant treatment, and then also I asked them to go over all the grass coming through the pavement areas again before we're done for the season. So I had them trim the trees last year. I held back a mowing, and we usually switch out a mowing for tree trimming, but I don't think on this year that we need to do that again. Next year I will. And we had quite a few trees that fell with storms that we had earlier in the year. I actually had to hire them to go out and cut trees up and remove them, because it was like that all over town, and the Parks Department they had their hands full with all over town without the cemetery. So, but we did get through that. So I'm very fortunate that between Philip as the Public Works Director and the Parks Superintendent being very responsive, that when I do need something of that nature, they're there and they can help me out, you know, on things just like that. So, and does anyone have any questions for me, or something like you've always wanted to ask? And because things, I don't want to jinx myself, but things have been going according to plan, which should be when you've had the same vendors for years, and we fine-tune the process. So, but if anyone has any questions for me of something you've always wondered why the process is the way it is, or anything like that, I'd be happy to answer if anyone has anything.
I'm curious if you have any projects in mind for the upcoming spring that you're wanting to be mindful of financially, and all of those
Okay.
different moving parts there.
Well, we have the crepe myrtles down the middle drive, and we have the roundabout. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to see that over in our historic district. Since, you know, we started that with mulch, and then I went back for an additional grant from Keep Durant Beautiful to get money for rock, and I think it's made all the difference. If you haven't had a chance to go out and look at it, please do. I think it has been instrumental in the sales increasing over in that area. I wanted to make the historic district look as nice as a newer area, because I do take a lot of potential buyers over there now, and eventually I'd say within the next 3 to 5 years, that will be the only place that I'm selling spaces at, is over in the historic district. So it was important for me to kind of get ahead and improve the appearance of that. I do know that the grave service is going to make some continued improvements around the maintenance building. They're going to put cameras on it, as surveillance cameras for that parking lot area and around the building. And they're supposed to put a high fence around the back of the building where it's already graveled back there, because they do sometimes have vaults that are not, they're just inventoried back there, and it's just to, you know, protect them. And we've just, we have noticed that we've had some vandalism, you know, out there, not during the night. Unfortunately, it's when they have been the grave service has been at a funeral and come back and had their truck broken into. So they're very much on guard now, with their equipment, and so they shut that door. We haven't had anyone try to get into that building. I think we have it secured pretty well. But that was one thing that they didn't expect, and I would not have anticipated that happening. But so far as any additional projects, I would be interested in if anyone had any suggestions. I mean, the one thing I've always wanted to have out there is in what we now call Magnolia Crossing, and that is the area behind the Section 4 drive that was more of a paupers area. I've had people ask me in the past, can we not have some type of area, like a memorial area, if the family members don't have a headstone for their loved one, they could put flowers somewhere. They could put something somewhere, because a lot of those graves are not marked. I mean, that's why they're there. Families at the time didn't have the financial resources, and because of that, generations follow. And when you go back and you try and tell them where that is, it's a range. I can't tell them exactly where, and it's it's an embarrassing thing for me. But they did not keep records on that area. Since I've took over, I have, but prior to that, no. So I think that's something I would like to look into, is to have an area for them, maybe just to go, and benches and make something there for them, I think would be nice. And I think that might be all that I've got. The things that I have a limited amount of funds, and what I'd love to do is fix the roadways in there. I think, everyone would. I don't have the resources to replace a lot of the roadways. I'm sure Philip would agree. A lot of them just need to be taken down to the ground. They've had overlays so many times that if you got off the edge, you'd have a hard time getting back on. I love that one area in the back between the pavilion and the chapel that's so smooth. Sometimes I'll go over there just to ride on it. I would love for every drive to be like that. The cost is just not possible to do all of that. But I think that's probably the focus on where, we would need to look. The reason I got the ground penetrating radar was a way to gain more spaces without the expense of expansion. It's not that I've got 5 acres on a hill to expand to, but that in itself has a cost of putting roadways in and things like that. So if I did that, I wouldn't be able to fix the roads that we do have in the existing space that we have. So that is why I went the other direction with it, but still being mindful of that. There's something Philip and I have had discussions about it in the past, and we will again, I'm sure, of how are we going to tackle this. And now that we're getting out of the mowing season, I'll look again at least getting some of those areas filled with patch, rather than, because I can't afford to do more than that, because even if we have city crews do it, it's not free. Their materials come out of the budget. There's not a benefactor for the cemetery. What money I have is what money I have. And I don't want to, I want to be very mindful of how I use it. I don't want to someday when I retire and there's, I just leave it at a point where no one can do anything. That's why I went to Keep Durant Beautiful, to get grants from them So I think so far as projects go, I mean, we're always looking at the roadways. And I do have that, you know, like I had said, that one area back with the Magnolia Crossing that I think we could do something with. And it's become kind of a family event at my house to keep up with that circle, with the roundabout, with watering it. You can imagine with the triple-digit temperatures, it was quite a feat to keep them all surviving. And so my husband and I go out with a water tank and we fill it up off of Drive 5 and we stand out there for literally hours, watering, filling it up, watering. So the more that I add that has live plants, I know the more that I'm going to have to do. When I retire, I'll do it as long as I can do it. At some point, I'm going to have someone else, you know, with that same interest in maintaining that to keep it looking as good as it does today, because it does take a lot of time. And so to answer your question, the Magnolia Crossing, and then we're really needing to look at the patching, you know, some of the roads. I don't think at this point that there is any section in there that it would take half of what I've got left in my reserves to do another section as big as what we did, you know, in the back of the cemetery. So, but we can always, you know, explore other avenues of, you know, trying to get other resources, but that's the harsh reality of where we're at. And so, is there any other questions or anything you have for me?
This might be a silly question, but I'm still learning a lot. With
Okay.
that said, could you let me know where our money comes from? Is it like what is your budget made out of?
Okay, the money that I refer to when I'm talking about how much money I have, that's in the perpetual care fund.
Okay.
And that came where it's 12.5% that gets pulled from a sale of a grave space or open and closing fees. Over the years, I mean, we're talking accumulating over, 110 years. That's how we get those funds. And they are dedicated funds. They can only be used for the improvement of the cemetery, such as road repairs, things like that.
And you said it was 12% of those sales?
12.5% of the sale price. Now, when we contracted out with the grave service, you know, we quit taking in the open close fees because we no longer perform that service.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to somehow, how are we going to, you know, gain those funds back, that's when we started charging the maintenance fee. And that's a one-time fee. It's due at every burial, it's $75. But that is for maintenance for eternity of the cemetery. Well, you can imagine, I mean, we've got 80 acres, 30,000 burials. Probably 3/4 of those didn't have a maintenance fee, really, you know. So it's a very slow way to build up funds. And so I don't see that there's going to be a tremendous surge in those funds at any time. We do have spaces that were reverted back to the city as a result of the ground penetrating radar, but I'm not going to sell all of those at once. So we're looking over the future. That could take decades, literal decades, to sell all those spaces. So I'm just kind of like putting drips in a bucket, you know. But that is how cemeteries maintain funds, you know. So obviously during COVID, we had burials the burial rate was higher and we were taking in a little bit more. We also, paid out quite a big amount to have that section of roadway done, but we had no choice on that. We had to take it down to the ground, and that's what we need to do. You'll feel the difference when you drive over it, but that's what I'd like to do everywhere, but it's just not feasible, with what we have. So I did put in for a grant this year with our grants coordinator for some help, but so did every other cemetery in Oklahoma, and we didn't get picked. So we are always keeping an eye out, for that. But that is, when I talk about funds, that is, where I'm talking about is a perpetual care fund. And they've used it for different reasons, over the years when we've had improvements. When we put the roof on the chapel, we replaced the roof on it. When we put new flooring in the chapel, new chairs, drapes, that improvements like that have come, from that fund. So, and when I did the ground penetrating radar, it is a benefit to the cemetery, and those funds, came from there. But I did stop that. I wanted to do 3 phases of that project. I did 2 because it came to the point where if I had to pick between that roadway that we replaced or I could have my phase 3 of the ground penetrating radar, I picked the ground penetrating radar. It seemed to me to be the wiser use of funds. So it's always a decision to make. I haven't had a benefactor in the last 8 years. I haven't had any donations, to the cemetery. When we got the statue and we got it refurbished, I did a fundraiser for that because I didn't want to dip in to those. And like I said, I went to Keep Durant Beautiful for grants. So I'm really trying not to touch it without a lot of thought into that. But it's just that one piece of roadway, we had no choice. But I don't, I would like to think that it's not going to have to last us forever. At some point, we would have some funding source, but there is none on the horizon at this time. So that's why we kind of got the brakes on the roadway until we have to do something. But I know, like I said, we'll be talking about patching coming up since we're in the off season for mowing and stuff like that. So that's always a decision that's heavy on my mind because I drive through there like everybody else does, and I make note of, because it's not so much an overlay problem in the historic district, it's deteriorating.
Yeah.
On the newer area is where it's already been overlaid several times, so.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the understanding now of where the finances come from.
Sure,
Thank you.
sure. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions, or? Hopefully when we meet next time, by then I'll be able to say we've done some patching, and even the patching is a relief when you drive over it. It does help and makes a difference. So, all right, thank you. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you, Miss Cindy. All right. As far as new business, I don't have any new business. Does anybody else? I might take this opportunity to ask you, Tom. I've not got an opportunity to meet you yet, but just a little bit about you, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. A lifelong resident of Bryan County in Durant and Caddo in earlier years. Retired from the Oklahoma Highway Patrol as a communications supervisor. I'm a former Durant police officer. I had a dual career also as a licensed funeral director and embalmer with James Dalton, beginning in around part-time and full-time for about 20 years, beginning around 1979. So I've seen from that perspective as a funeral director the administration of the cemetery, I loved Evelyn Badger. Cynthia has taken it to a whole new level. I have watched silently over these years as she's taken effort and measures to bring it to where it is now as far as record keeping and so forth goes. And I've been there when she was out there working and canvassing. So I appreciate those things.
Thank you.
After all these years of not saying a word, maybe. Have family buried there, I think probably starting around 100 years ago. So about 4 generations there now.
Wow.
And in the Lord's timing, I'll be the 5th. And so anyway, just in retirement, this looked like an opportunity, hopefully just to at least maintain, if not improve. And so I look forward to working with everyone. I again apologize for being late. I hope that the reason for it might be partially acceptable.
Absolutely.
But anyway, look forward to what we can accomplish.
Thank you, and thank you for serving. Does anybody have anything else? Thoughts, ideas? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Call vote.
Chairman Crystal Maynard,
Aye.
Tom Garner,
Aye.
Philip Hightower,
Aye.
Jody McWilliams.
Aye.
We are adjourned.